You have anything more to say?
I've never retired something that was born before.
What's the difference?
To be born is to have a soul, I guess.
Are you telling me no?
I wasn't aware that was an option, madam.
Attaboy. Hey, you've been getting on fine without one.
What's that, madam?
A soul.
In the last video I uploaded, I talked about the original Blade Runner and how the theme that resonates most to me is the theme of appreciating the life you've been given. The film is so open-ended and can be interpreted in many different ways, but even just for my own take, I can't express my feelings fully without also talking about Blade Runner 2049, which is arguably just as fantastic as the original. I said before that I prefer the original, but still I love 2049. Both of these movies are ranked highly on my favorite movie list. Just like the original, Blade Runner 2049 starts with text, providing some context for what's to come. The text now explains that replicants are technically bioengineered humans, where in the original they are simply credited as the next step in advanced robot evolution, and virtually identical to a human, virtually being the keyword there. With Blade Runner being an adaptation of a book called Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, the fact they are almost human can probably be credited to the replicants essentially being androids. That's personally how I always saw it. I will get back to this one later though. Aside from this, the text explains how since Tyrell's death in the original, the Tyrell Corporation has been taken over by a new super genius who created a new kind of replicant with arguably a more controlled level of free will. Only the Nexus 8s remain from the past era and are deemed worthy of being hunted down by Blade Runners, as these have had open-ended lifespans. The film starts very similar to the original, almost like a homage. We meet Ryan Gosling's Kay, who aside from being literally me, is also a Blade Runner, who has arrived at this farm to kill a surviving Nexus 8. Here it comes to light that Blade Runners are now replicants also, so the hypocrisy of a replicant killing his own kind proves to be an essential element to the ultimate theme of the film. The Nexus 8 fights for his life, but Kay, being a more advanced replicant, holds his own against the bigger guy, where Deckard in the original would get his ass beat by every replicant he fought. When the Nexus has lost his fight to survive, he speaks of witnessing a miracle that separates the free-thinking Nexus 8 and the government-controlled Blade Runner. Kay kills the Nexus 8 and takes out his eye, a bit like how a hunter would take a prey's tail or head as proof of their kill. Before leaving, Kay notices flowers by what looks like a dead tree. The police scanning tech discovers a box of bones buried under the tree. The flowers were clearly left as a sign of respect, like leaving flowers by a gravestone. Kay returns to headquarters. You can tell the Blade Runners are second-class citizens from the start, with the slur, skin job, uttered at Kay, and this new kind of Voight-Kampff test being a mandatory thing for Blade Runners to take after coming back from a mission. This test now being used to make sure the replicant mentally fits the standard set by the government. In the original film, it was shown to be the same in 2019, with Deckard pretty much not having any choice but to do his job when the threat of his life is on the line, when Deckard not finishing the job of killing all the replicants is what had him and Rachel run away in the end. In Blade Runner 2049, the Blade Runners are not only shown as second-class citizens due to this totalitarian police system, but because they are also replicants, and replicants are still to this day viewed as inhuman and unworthy of freedom. Roy fought for the freedom of a longer life, where replicants of 2049 have their lives robbed by the lack of freedom in their living. For the replicants then and now, freedom only comes through acts of rebellion. Kay arrives home to his girlfriend, who is oddly a hologram, resembling an idea of the perfect girlfriend. The scenes with Joy really work to build the character of Kay over anything else. His loneliness is intensified by this idea that his love is for this product that you can buy, and that product also being created by the corporation that made him. It puts into question the legitimacy of the replicants again in the year 2049. There is such a contrast in Joy and Kay's humanity with Joy, very seemingly acting in a way that she is programmed to. So as an audience, we don't doubt Kay's humanity. We empathize with the pathetic nature of his life. By this point, we understand why Kay would be at this point in his life, where he questions his purpose. He aspires to be someone. The original film has a few moments some interpret as the film's way of making this thematic point of capitalism skewing the moral compass, which I can see, but personally this is not what I think of when I think of Blade Runner. With Blade Runner 2049, I think this is a huge part of the story though. I wouldn't be surprised if the writers, who are also the same writers of the original, used this film to expand on ideas that got brushed over before due to the tight pace of the original, where Blade Runner 2049 is a much more spacious movie. The bones have been dug up, and we find out that these are the bones of Rachel. We found out that Rachel was pregnant, and likely died around the time her and Deckard's child was born. We also see that there is a serial number on her bones. The fact the number starts with an N, it's possible that this stands for Nexus, and the number after that being 7 gives us reason to believe that Rachel was actually a Nexus 7, rather than a Nexus 6, which makes a lot of sense. Not only because she is the first replicant to birth a child, but because she had the most raw emotions of the original characters. She really felt like a person, discovering her emotions, and being someone who had to navigate her way through these complex feelings, of letting the memories you hold dear go, and the fear of closeness and intimacy. The revelation that a replicant can birth a child is the inception of Kay's philosophical dilemma. Up until now, Kay has been a replicant, and has never questioned his worth to be any more than that. But the idea of a replicant giving birth changes everything. The ability for a replicant to reproduce really legitimizes their right to be acknowledged as human. At least this is what they will believe. The lieutenant knows that the replicants will react strongly to this revelation. Such a revelation can kickstart an uprising, so it's Kay's job to dispose of all the evidence and connections that may lead someone else to this new kept secret. We get introduced to the first antagonist of the film when we meet Love, who is alerted when Kay arrives at what the Tyrell Corporation has now become, searching for more information on the discovered bones of Rachel. Just from Kay's comment about her being named by Wallace gives us an idea on her character. Just from this moment we can see her desire to be deemed special in the eyes of her creator. This serves as a good parallel to Kay, whose desire is to be more than just a replicant. One wants to be seen as the perfect replicant. The other wants to be seen as a human, worthy of a soul. Love takes Kay to the archive room and shows him footage recorded from when Rachel was questioned by Deckard back in 2019. This is the first time Kay is made aware of Deckard. Kay comes across someone who to us is a familiar face. Deckard's old partner, now in a retirement home, speaks of the look in Deckard's eye. Those who still believe Deckard is a replicant, which I personally expressed in my video of the original, that I don't think Deckard is a replicant at all. They may take this scene as a further confirmation of Deckard being a replicant, as it is a nod to how replicants' eyes have a certain look to them. But to me, the look in Deckard's eyes referred to here is the look of a broken man, someone who had nothing to lose until he found a reason to start again. We finally meet Wallace, who has been built up to be a powerful figure in the new world of 2049. I know a lot of people don't like Jared Leto, but I think he is great. Leto was in Requiem for a Dream, Fight Club, Mr. Nobody, Dallas Buyers Club, American Psycho, Panic Room, and Blade Runner 2049. So to say he is a bad actor when he has notable roles in all these great movies is absurd to me. Something great about his introduction in the movie is that we get to see the creation of a replicant for the first time. It really does look like a grown person being birthed out of a tube. Wallace's desire for perfection is also intensified when Wallace kills the replicant, deeming her as a flawed being. What Wallace really wants is the perfect human replication, which seemingly came when Tyrell made Rachel. With this scene, I call back to the opening text where the replicants are sort of redefined as bioengineered humans. Bioengineering, to put in the most simple way, is sort of taking a piece of the genetic code within something, or the DNA, and using scientific techniques to replicate the original source of the DNA. A bit like how fruit can be created in labs, as the weather conditions to grow fruit do not carry on throughout a whole year. So instead of like in old times where fruit needed to be in season, we can artificially create something like an apple by planting the seed in an artificial environment and injecting the DNA of a certain kind of apple to grow an almost exact copy of another apple. So now, robot evolution has advanced to what seems to be growing humans, like you would grow a plant. And the philosophical question comes on whether you think something is real, if it is born or manufactured. This is a perspective he has gained because that is how they want a replicant to think in this society. Kay returns to the home of the Nexus 8 from the start to further investigate. And when Kay investigates the tree where Rachel's remains were found, he discovers a date carved into the tree. This clearly surprises Kay, leading to a flash to his past. This is where Kay initially gets the idea that this whole thing could be about him. Like this.
No, this whole thing, all of this, it's all about me.
Kay basically has a memory buried deep down where he was in an orphanage and was being chased by loads of kids who wanted to steal his toy horse, and the exact date carved onto the tree is also carved into his old toy horse. This gives Kay enough evidence to question his own place in the case. Kay himself could be the child birthed from a replicant. What we know from the first movie is that replicants' childhood memories are indeed implants, as they were never kids in the first place. So, Kay's goal from now on is to find out if his memory is real, because he was born and raised to live a life, or if it was implanted by someone trying to cover their steps. Joy also plays this role of Kay's girlfriend, despite being an artificial product, and because she is something that is built to serve Kay, she sort of treats him exactly how he would want, and says everything he would want to hear. So I think it is Joy who really pushes this idea to Kay that he is special once he makes this discovery. Kay carries on the investigation on his own accord, and Love proceeds to spy on him, hoping that he will do all the work and find out everything she wants to know. Kay arrives at the child labor factory that he believes he might have grown up in, only to find that all the records that could lead someone to the truth has been destroyed. The only thing that remains is his toy horse that he believes he left behind. So, on one side it is clear someone is trying to cover their tracks, and on the other, it seems very possible that Kay is this special person, the first person born of a replicant mother. In his search for more information on implanted memories, Kay meets the person who creates the memories for the replicants. It's a really creative scene. Stuff like this is what makes Blade Runner so unique. The memory creator is able to see Kay's memory as he thinks about it. We see her get more emotional about it than he does, and she tells Kay that it happened, but she never said it happened to him. Kay still feels conflicted when he discovers this memory to be real, leading him to a burst of rage.
I know it's real.
When we see Kay take the test, things prove to be way different to how it was at the start of the film. Knowing that the memory he has is real, and believing it was his own, has put his whole life's legitimacy out of balance. If he is this special person like he might be, then why has he been convinced to think he is just any other replicant? How much of the life he has lived is genuinely real? The movie likes to reflect these themes through Kay and Joy, who have a seemingly real love for each other, despite one being an artificial human, and the other being what is essentially an AI hologram system. There's an argument to its realness, as they are there living it, but there's such a fraudulent nature to it, even to create a feeling of physical connection they have to use a prostitute as a sort of body double. This prostitute being a replicant even questions the realness, as the common belief is that replicants do not have souls. Are these two souls sharing intimacy, or are they engineered beings sharing a physical exchange? With Kay's weakening mental state, he no longer has the backing of the police and has to continue his search for the truth alone. But Love is always watching Kay, and she is able to track his whereabouts after killing the lieutenant and infiltrating the police database. Where Love is led to, and where Kay has arrived at, is 2049 Las Vegas, which is visually the most incredible location of the film. Here, Kay finds Deckard, and the parallel is striking. Once Deckard was a Blade Runner, hunting replicants to survive in an unforgiving world. Now he is faced with a replicant Blade Runner searching for the truth. You can understand why Deckard is so defensive. If the tables were turned, Deckard would not hesitate to kill someone he's seeking. The battle Deckard and Kay have is probably my favorite part of the movie. I love the timing of the action, and all the holograms and music of old 50s icons like Elvis and Marilyn Monroe. Stylistically, this scene is a one-in-a-million kind of scene. Eventually, things settle, and Deckard allows Kay to talk to him. We really get to see how Deckard's perspective on artificial life has changed. Just when Kay asks if the dog is real, Deckard doesn't even show to care if it is or not. Whereas in the original, every time he sees an animal, he would ask if it was real. Even when Kay tells Deckard his name, KD6, 3.7, Deckard tells him how this is just a serial number, not a name. You can tell that Deckard has broken out of this system. He was once a part of where he was made to see replicants as lesser than him. Deckard expresses that he never met his kid, and that everyone had a plan to keep this a secret. Then eventually, all traces to track Deckard back to his own kid was lost in the blackout, an event that happened between the two movies, where all the electricity and internet information was completely wiped from existence. So when things came, almost everything stored from the past was gone. Deckard admits also that he never wanted to see his kid, as he knew it would put the child in danger. It's good to see Deckard go from being this sort of drowning person to now being someone who valued his life in some way. He really cared for Rachel and his family, even though their circumstances made things worse. A bit like how the replicants of the original film still had this tight bond despite being hunted. Love and Wallace's forces track Kay down and reach Vegas, where they attack Kay and Deckard. Kay puts up a good fight before Love beats him and destroys Joy. Deckard is kidnapped while Kay is left to die. Kay is luckily retrieved by a group of replicants, including the prostitute he intertwined with before. This group is made up of the replicants who know of Rachel birthing a child. Even their leader was there with Rachel when it happened, and with her missing eye, we can assume she either survived a Blade Runner or gave it up, to make it seem that she is already dead. The replicants who know the truth know that the truth will free them. A replicant has a right to become more than a slave if they have the power to give birth. Kay finds out that he in fact isn't the son of Rachel, and was used as a deterrent to the real child of Rachel, who we also learn here is actually a girl. Not only was Rachel's kid a girl, but Kay realizes that the memory creator was in fact Rachel's daughter, as she had such an emotional reaction to this, and she said it was a real memory, because it was her memory that she knew to be real. This revelation doesn't mean he has lost his chance to become this person he wants to be, someone who is important. The replicant group ask Kay to kill Deckard, as the leader doesn't trust that Wallace will not use Deckard to find her and her group. Deckard and Wallace finally meet, and Wallace tries to use a copy of Rachel to win Deckard over. But it is true that no two replicants are the same. Deckard knows this is in no way his deceased lover, and Deckard would never let Wallace get to his child. Wallace wants the child to capitalize off it, where the resistance group wants the child alive to stand as a beacon of hope, a figure that can free them from their chains. Deckard is taken away from Tyrell's old building to a place we can assume is where replicants are created, as Love refers to this place as home. Kay hijacks this transit and has a brutal fight with Love. I remember when the movie came out, there were people complaining that Deckard sort of gets reduced to this character in need of saving, like a damsel in distress almost. But Deckard was never this tough guy in the original. Deckard got beat up by every replicant he met. As an old man, facing the most physically advanced replicants alive, Deckard would get killed in this fight. Even Kay essentially kills himself to win this fight against Love. When Kay finally wins, he doesn't follow through in killing Deckard. It turns out Kay had no intention of killing Deckard, and instead opted to save Deckard and reunite him with his daughter. The cause of the resistance group means nothing to Kay. He understands Deckard and his daughter's needs to meet more than anyone else, because he shared this hope of being someone, the kind of hope someone like Deckard would have. Knowing the freedom to be with his daughter has been taken from him, and the freedom the daughter hopes for, so that she can see her father. Kay killing Love, and letting the wreckage of the battle fall to sea, leaves things off with everyone believing Deckard is dead, and through the freedom of being a dead man walking, Deckard can see his daughter again with no negative repercussions. Deckard thanks Kay for giving him this chance. Deckard goes in to see his daughter, and Kay lays on the steps outside as his body finally gives in. Kay dies in a very similar fashion to Roy, where in this movie, there is a score similar in nature to the famous music from the original Tears in Rain scene. Deckard sees his daughter, and the years of running, the sacrifice he made after Roy saved his life, finally led to a moment where Deckard was at peace. To me, the original Blade Runner has always been about appreciating life through empathy, and Blade Runner 2049 has always been about a man's desire to be important when the system in charge wants him to be a slave who follows orders with no question and kills his own kind with no resistance. The desire to be more than just an android who dreams of electric sheep or wooden horses. Both movies to me are about how in life we should choose to be great. For Deckard to come to this conclusion, he had to learn to appreciate life when Roy showed him what it meant to be a good man, and Kay came to this conclusion when he realized he had to sacrifice the safety of his lonesome life for someone who had their life taken from them. In all honesty, there are so many ways of interpreting these movies. Any movie of nuance can mean different things to anyone, so if the movie means something else to you than it does to me, let me know in the comments. Respectfully, that is. This is Mansplaining Movies. Like the video, subscribe, and more importantly, comment. I'd love to hear any feedback. What do you think of Blade Runner 2049? Do you still think Deckard is a replicant? Do you prefer the original or the sequel? I want to hear anything you've got to add. Let me know.